Yes, hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Roland. If this is your first time here, I would like to remind you that I am on YouTube living out my passion, which is helping you remember who and why you are through any means necessary. My favorite is effective meditating. I've also written a book, Who and Why You Are, All You Need to Remember, which is available on Amazon right now for you to purchase. And another effective means to get you to awaken, essentially, is to have conversations with folks who have already awakened and to show you that there are an infinite number of ways to attain this level of consciousness. And this is a continuation of a conversation I've been having with my friend Njoya. We left off in the last conversation talking about meditating and how Spencer meditates. But right here, he's going to continue the conversation and introduce mindfulness. All right, so here we go.
Yeah, I use apps, but so like there's one thing I also like to bring in. So for me, meditation and mindfulness, like those go hand in hand. And for me to be able to stay centered is by practicing mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
and it's incorporated, it's moved into every area of my life, and areas which I am developing. And one of the places where I do a lot of mindfulness is in my travels.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've noticed I travel quite a bit,
Yeah.
At this time, I think I've been to about 35 different countries, and some of them multiple times. But like each of these places that I go to, and to go back to like the start of our conversations with my experiences in India, like it's me going there and looking for these experiences, like seeing how different cultures cope with life, like see how they stay centered, so it's never just about like, oh, I want to go and see the Eiffel Tower and that's it. No, I would go into the smaller cities that people will not regularly visit, I'm going to go hike in the villages in Europe, or in back countries,
Yeah, the Himalayas too.
Yeah.
I don't know how many Cameroonians have been to the Himalayas or the base of Mount Everest. Like, that's nuts. And all this information is on mykaizenlife.org, I believe. It's going to be a link below so you don't think we're making stuff up here if you're listening. He's literally been everywhere. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
There's still a lot more to come. I just hope I get the time to see more of the world, because the world is safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's a safer place. It's the safest it has ever been.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the way it is talked about. Like we live in this space where we are constantly being told it's not safe. Like these people want to kill us. These people don't like us. Like let's crush these people from coming up with their true potential. Otherwise they're going to surpass us.
Mm-hmm.
But everywhere I go, there's just happy people. All over the planet, and it's pure joy, it's not the joy from the materialistic things, which again is the way the society we grew up in. That was the goal of life, like to have all of this material things and you're going to be happy, whereas when you go to all these other places, the happiest people are the ones with the least possessions, like they are happy in the heart, like they're happy in the smiles, like they are happy to see you. Sometimes I'm usually the first Cameroonian, sometimes I'm the first black person that they've interacted with,
mm-hmm.
the first Cameroonian that they've ever, come in contact with,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives an opportunity for us to dialogue, like it gives an opportunity for them to see people as they truly are instead of as how they are spoken about,
Yeah.
Just seeing them as it is, but not as it is spoken about, like we have people who never left their cities, but they could tell you stories about horrible things going on in the world, and they are convinced, because that's the information that has been fed to them,
Yeah.
And I get to have this very, very rich experience, which I deeply appreciate. Like last year, I was in Slovakia, all right? And there was this we had this, he was not a marist priest, but a marist brother, but there's another one of them. They're part of, they're high up in the holy order, like they're in the Catholic Church, you know.
Okay.
But this guy, he only spoke Slovakian and Latin.
You're
But
kidding.
he and I had a 45-minute conversation.
People still speak Latin today? What?
Exactly. Yeah. So, because that's what they teach all of these people who study Christianity. You know, like, what's the subject? Yeah. They learn all of that in Latin, right?
Yeah.
So
I know we learned Latin a little bit in Sacred Heart, but I can't hold a conversation.
I was so surprised that I could still remember certain Latin words, you know, and that I could understand what he was saying, you know. So English is also a derivative from Latin. So there are certain things that I was saying in English and he would then say it in Latin, you know, like he would continue in Latin, you know, and we would understand ourselves, you know, like that is a very, very rich experience, you know.
Yeah.
And I went back to my hostel that night and I was like, wow, what a wonderful day I've had, you know, like really. I was like, wow, like this is like, who would have known, you know, like I just had an amazing day and I was there only for 2 days, you know, but just that 45-minute, and it was during the World Cup, that 45-minute conversation with this guy during the World Cup game, that's the one thing that I remember from being in Slovakia, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and these are the experiences that I'm talking. These are the mindful experiences, you know, that I'm talking about, and how I've incorporated mindfulness into my life. You know, where I see the need for a connection with another human being. You know, like he realizes the connection with the need to have a connection and a conversation with another human being, and against all odds, we are able to make it work. You know, just by sheer willpower, you know.
Yeah. And so, okay, and this is one of the craziest things about, first of all, thank you so much for sharing, but this is one of the interesting things about my perspective ever since my spiritual awakening. So that story, something similar happened to me in Germany. My wife, right now, I visited her back in Germany, and we went to see her godmother, and she doesn't speak a lick of English. Now, granted, my wife was there to sort of translate if there was an issue, but she spoke straight German, and I could understand exactly what she was referring to, right? Based on our conversation, I'm like, okay, I know what you're trying to tell me here, and then respond. And then my wife would sort of just confirm, like, yes, in my responses. And then she would translate what I said in English to Germany. But most of it she could understand as well, even though she didn't speak. But when I hear that, and your experience too, and this might sound far-fetched, and if you're listening to this, feel free to comment. But it kind of reminds me of the story in the Bible when the folks, right, the apostles were filled with the Holy Spirit, and then they could sort of speak in tongues. Like they could speak one language and then everybody understands. And I kind of see that as, like, somebody might take that literally as I speak one language and everyone understands. But it has to do with speaking from like a space of consciousness or bliss or like universal truthiness that everybody knows. You don't literally have to be able to speak Latin or Slovenia fluently, but sometimes you may just even look at a person and then communicate with them that way. So that's super beautiful, man. Oh my goodness.
And it's not just that one, you know, like there are times in India where I'll be in a place where no one speaks the language that I understand. No one even speaks the language that a lot of them, the Indians, will understand. But we will communicate effectively, you know, or in Nepal, or, you know, or in some small village in the Philippines, you know. It's just, it's really like, I don't think these are things which I would have been open to doing had I not been at this stage of my life where I'm very, very mindful of certain things, you know. There would have been things where I would just be like, okay, I don't have time for this. I can't deal with this right now. I am not patient enough and I can't do this. And I would just dismiss that potentially very, very rich experience altogether, you know? So again, when I talk about incorporating a mindfulness into my life, you know, like those are the things where the little things, it's nothing big. It's just paying attention to the little things, you know, and when you do, you don't realize that you have a life which is truly limitless, you know, like there's so much potential, and you could reach out to any kind of person from anywhere in the world, you know, without really, really working hard, you know, like you just need to have that will to want to, you know, reach out to someone or to connect with someone, and the universe just places the tools and everything at your disposal for you to make that connection, you know?
Yeah, that is true. Thank you so much. We are at over an hour now. With some editing, we might be at an hour here, but I'm going to we can keep going if you have time. I know it's pretty late already in the UAE. Do you want to keep going for a little bit?
Yeah, it's fine, man. Don't worry too much about it.
Okay.
Let's carry on.
Yeah. So we've talked about meditating. We've talked about a lot. You've said some very interesting things, particularly, I mean, not to say that the other ones are important, but that the universe, like we are unique expressions of the universe basically experiencing itself. And, you know, in listening to everything you've said, all the different cultures you've experienced, I can't help but gravitate to my understanding now, which is that all these cultures are trying to survive in different ways. And they're also attempting to understand a higher being in different ways, which is the result of the diversity that we're experiencing. Is how else can you survive? How else can you interact with nature? How else can you feel comfortable? How else can you find bliss or happiness with it? Right? I mean, is that sort of your understanding? Has that been your experience?
Yeah, largely it has, you know, and before the advent of capitalization, you know, like, or modernization, if that's what you know, like people would love to call it. We used to be beings who just used to worry about what we wanted to eat and how to protect our young, you know. And we have since moved from that phase where we don't need to worry about, at least the majority, a good portion of the world no longer needs to worry about what they have to eat or shelter or protect their young, you know. Now it's all about getting as much as you can, you know, ergo capitalism. But again, in all these cultures, the ones which have been the most welcoming, like in all the places I've been to, the ones which have been the most welcoming, the ones who've been the most down to earth, and the ones who I think thrive better than the rest of us are the ones who have minimum possessions with them, you know, the ones who leave the least carbon footprint, the ones who live together with their environment as one, you know. So you don't there's no disconnect between man and nature, you know, and the animals. Like they are all the same. And I'll give you another experience of mine. 3 years ago, I was hiking. So I was doing a test run for my eventual trip to the Everest base camp. So I was doing high altitude trekking, and I was doing it on the Himalayan range, but from the Indian side, in this place called Ladakh. And it was, I think, a 7 or 9 day trip, and I was going to go hike up to about 5,600 meters. So at those altitudes, your brain kind of it goes on a trip, you know, and you have to acclimatize properly to be able to survive there. The oxygen you're used to breathing at lower altitudes is different, you know, so there's a lot of adaptation that you need to do, you know, and even like your body burns more calories than ever. It's freezing cold at night, you know, so your body is in overdrive all the time. But the people who live there, that's obviously their home. So that's not they're used to it. And I had a Buddhist guide with me over this 7 or 8 days, And I used to see these structures, they looked like pits, but they were not really pits, And I asked him, like, what is that? And he said, it's a wolf trap,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what do you mean by a wolf trap? And he said, it's for the farmers, and they only open that trap when there's a wolf that keeps coming to like hunt their cattle and stuff. So it's not there to always trap the wolf,
Mm-hmm.
And because a lot of the Buddhists, they don't believe in killing anything,
Mm-hmm.
They live in harmony with everything around them, and they will only pick fruits from trees. Some of them will only have fruits that have fallen from the trees, like they wouldn't even go to the extent of, plucking it from the tree. Some of the people, like, they wouldn't kill their animals. They would only eat the animal if it passed away naturally, if it died a natural death.
Yeah.
So back to this wolf trap. So I was asking him, I was like, but because he had then told me, like, hey, the majority of people here are Tibetan Buddhists, and they usually don't kill to eat. I was like, and they don't harm anything. I was like, but then you're going to kill the wolf. And he said, no, that is just to protect their livestock. And they do it after they've noticed that the wolf keeps on coming to hunt their livestock. And what they do is, like, they open that wolf trap, and they lure the wolf with an injured lamb or cow or something,
Yeah.
And then when it falls into that trap, everyone from that village has to come and stone the wolf. So there is not a single person responsible for killing that wolf, And I said, why does everyone have to do it? It's like, so that everyone shares the karma of killing that wolf, so that it doesn't land on one person alone, because it's such a heavy thing. Like, that's how much life means to them, Yeah. So it's a whole ceremony, like they're rounding up the whole village for everyone to come and shoot, shoot the wolf,
Yeah.
And that was just one of the ways, and then even the ways they constructed their farms, sourcing water from waterfalls, like it snows there in the winter. So when the ice is melting, they then redirect the water into their farms, and they use it to, water their crops, during the summer and everything. Then even like the cow dung, that's what they use as fuel, to heat their homes in the winter, they just burn it. And it's so green, it's so lush, there is zero disturbance, with nature, they're not breaking down things to construct other things. They are not, they're just really, really connected to earth, and I'm like, this is the way I would love to live,
Indeed.
And that's why I keep going back to all of these places, because I want to go back and have those experiences, I'll admit I don't have the courage to live like that now, but I'm hoping that someday I'm going to be able to, live in a place where I have the least interference, the least disturbance of nature, and everything around me, whether it's people, whether it's nature, just to live in harmony, And in all of these places, whether it's in Indonesia or in Asia or whichever country that you go to, you would see that these people, they have very, very strong connections with one another, And even you come in as an outsider there, you can feel it, you can feel the love that is coming from within them, they are happy to receive you, they are genuine, One other time we got in Nepal, I think we couldn't reach our camp, so you trek for several days, and you're getting to different places, and we just had to stop at someone's house, and they welcomed us in, like the family. They made dinner, like I had food with them. They gave me a place to sleep. And the next morning, like I wanted to tip them. And I'm like, no, like your money has no business
value here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like your money like your money has no value here, like we're just happy we could, like make your journey here easier, like that's all they cared about. They just want to make life easier for you, and it's one of the things that I really, really appreciate about people from these communities. To them, it's just about living in harmony with the environment and just making life easier for everyone. Not easier, reducing the suffering of everyone.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for sharing that. I mean, this is one of 24. In our next interview, we're going to talk a little bit more about these trips and how you plan them. Because with folks listening right now, they're going to be interested. How do you plan these trips? What are you working through, an agency or somebody, or are you just going online and finding them and picking them and going to them? But we'll talk about that in another interview. So if you're interested, just wait for our next interview, guys. I want to piggyback and go to this next topic. I'm kind of excited about this because you're the only this is so fascinating. You're the only other Cameroonian I've heard talk about this. Okay. And I don't know if when we talked about it, I mentioned I was very interested in it. But you talked about going at high altitudes and attaining sort of different states of consciousness, or because of lower oxygen levels there. But one way to attain alternate levels of consciousness is through meditating, and another way, which I found very interesting, is ayahuasca, right?
Yeah.
And you've mentioned ayahuasca, and I don't know if you're comfortable talking about this today or now, and I can cut this out. By the way, I can cut this out if we're not. But are you comfortable talking about ayahuasca?
Of course I am.
Oh, sexy. I love it. Oh, fuck yeah, man. This is awesome.
It's an experience which, if you ask me, I think everyone should have.
Okay. So let me set the question up, and then we can... So one way is through, to attain this alternate states of consciousness, right, is through meditating. And another way is plant medicine, and specifically ayahuasca. And it sounds like you've had experience with ayahuasca. And it sounds like this happened in Europe. Would you mind telling me about your views on ayahuasca and then what that experience was like for you?
Yeah. So I've had a run with ayahuasca, and it was quite a pleasant run-in. And again, like, these things are not things that you go looking for. Like, they come to you when you're ready. Like, there's this. I'm not sure which country it's from, or from which religion, but I'm sure it's Asian, where it says when the student is ready, the master appears. And I had first heard of ayahuasca when I was in India, and I didn't care about it, and it came back into my life like maybe 5 years later, and that was when I would say, like, I was going through something which I felt like I was losing myself, and I had just started getting back on my feet again, like I was then becoming, I went deeper into my mindfulness practice, and really just trying to put myself back on the right track, like trying to center myself again, And one of our friends, she was an acquaintance at the time, and she had an accident, like a terrible accident, and her broke her spine, and she had gone through multiple surgeries. It was supposed to be one surgery, but then it became multiple surgeries, and she was in pain all the time, and life just became really, really difficult for her, and she tried all type of medicine, but the pain would not just go away. And then she got introduced to plant medicine, and she went and she had her experience, and then she came back and she told our other friends from my close circle of friends. She was friends with some other people there, and then one of them came back and told me that, hey, Steffi had this experience, and I was like, that same week, I had then started reading again about ayahuasca. It popped up somewhere, and I was like, wait, what? Like, this is not a coincidence, like this is a sign, and everything happening, and I delved into it. I connected with Steffi. She and I spoke. She told me about her experience, and I started my preparation for it, So part of that preparation was getting rid of any emotional baggage that I could identify and get rid of, And I did that through my Everest base camp trek, So the higher I went up, the more things I like, the more stuff I left behind. Like there's this quote by this very inspirational woman, Njoya, and she says, "These mountains you are carrying, you are only meant to climb."
Yeah.
I took that literally, So like as I was going up the mountain, every emotional baggage that I've been carrying with me, I was just dropping it off there on the mountain. I was like, the mountain can accommodate this, I can't, So I started dropping all of those things there, and the more I dropped, the clearer things became for me, And it took me a year from the time that I spoke to Steffi to the point where I finally booked my ayahuasca retreat. The retreat I did is it's a lighter experience of what, like the people who do it in the Amazon, like the experience. And just to warn everyone, in the Amazon, yes, there are a lot of these retreats, but I've been told by so many people that a lot of them are also scams. You have some shamans who are not really good shamans, and they just harvest energy from people. Harvesting energy is a thing. There are people that you are around and you just feel depleted completely, There are people that you're around and you feel energized and the whole group is energized, So she was like, you can go with this organization. They are a very trusted organization and they run retreats in several places in Europe, So I planned one of my trips to Europe and I got that booking done, somewhere in just outside Berlin. And I went there and I had this retreat. It's by far the most transformative experience that I have had in my entire life, And I was there for 3 nights. And on the first night, so like these are things which you prepare yourself to come to. It's not a drug experience, it's plant medicine. It's the way people healed others before, the big corporations came in and, started making medicine, available to everyone in the way that they do. In the past, everything was being done by plants, and for these people to have been able to know what was going to be able to cure what disease, they had to have a way of connecting to earth and connecting with these plants, and that's what ayahuasca is. Ayahuasca is simply, not simply, there's nothing simple about it, but it's just, it's a brew from a certain vine and some other leaves, so you take these 2 plants, you cook them together, and that vine is what you drink, So there's no, it's not something that is made in a lab. It's not something that a chemist can, can go and cook up like other drugs and give you, and you get into this altered state of consciousness. And before going there, because this organization, they guide you very, very well. They tell you, make sure you come here with an intention or a couple of intentions. My intentions, the first one was how to connect with people, to understand what true empathy is, we can talk about empathy all we want, but you will never be able to understand the joy or pain that someone is feeling as a result of something unless you have had that same experience.
And I don't mean to cut you short here, Spencer, but that's a very good point. And one thing that I have learned is it's very hard to understand some other person's pain, even if you have a similar experience. And the reason for that is because we are all unique expressions of the universe, and that uniqueness makes it dang near impossible to replicate some other person's experience, right? You can learn from some other person, but I believe that the value you bring to experiencing life on Earth is your uniqueness to experiencing an experience and then responding to that experience. And so, but it's still a lofty goal, and it's still a very beautiful intention to have, to be able to put yourself in some other person's shoe in that capacity. So
you know, and because we talk about empathy, we want to be more empathetic towards people, but sometimes we just don't know how to, you know, and because we haven't had that experience to the same depth of that person, you know. So that was one of the reasons. The second reason was to find out whether I am doing the best that I can with my life, whether I am living to my full potential, you know, whether I am centered, and how much I have deviated from what I need to consider my center, you know, or what, in English speaking terms, what my values are, and how much I've deviated, you know, like from those values, you know. Those were the intentions that I had going into them. Those were the two primary ones. And the third one was just basically just, you know, like living life to the best of my ability, you know. But it just piggybacks off the second intention. And they advised me, they said, ayahuasca it's like the vital life force, you know, like so like it translates to mother, you know, in one of the Amazonian languages, you know. So she gives you what you are ready to experience, you know. She is the source of everything, you know, like she's the earth, she is you, she's the sky, she is everything around us, you know. But our human experience here sometimes disconnects us from her, you know. And when you are in that altered state of consciousness, you then have that direct line, you know, like it's like a hotline to God, you know, as for people who believe in God, you know. It's like a hotline to the rest of the cosmos, you know, for people who believe in God in the traditional sense, you know. It's the direct connection to the higher source of energy, you know. And that is what I felt, you know. So I'll give you a summary of my experience, because it's hard to like put it into words, but I'll try as much as I can to, you know, put it in a way that you can understand it. And one of the things the shaman warned me about was that, one, your intentions may not be dealt with during this retreat. You may see other things which you think you are not ready to see. So meaning that ayahuasca is going to show you what things you're ready to see. You know? You may leave from here more confused than you have ever been in your entire life, you know. You may also with so much clarity, you know. Your intentions may be answered, and you would have achieved your goal. But they're like, a lot of times people don't, a lot of times they do. Each experience is very unique, you know, like no two experiences are the same. If I have an experience today, I'm definitely not going to have that experience tomorrow, you know. Like, I shouldn't go in being like, okay, this is what I want to do. Like, I should be open to the experience. I should be open to see what's going to happen. You know, like I should take it in. You know? So we dive into the first session, and God, like it was a crazy trip. You know, because from there I got to notice when my consciousness, the one that is in this body, you know, when it was pulled out from, you know, like from from the main consciousness and put into this body, you know.
Okay.
I'm talking about the time of my conception, you know. So like that when this my consciousness was born, you know.
Yes.
And then me going out, I saw myself coming out of my mom, you know, and that first my mom holding me, cradling me in her arms, you know, like, and all I could feel was pure love, you know, like the purest version of it, you know, from another person to me, you know, like it was that moment, you know, like me coming out of my mom and her holding me, you know, and then me growing up, you know, like I got to re-experience the first time I was angry about something. I got to re-experience the first time I ever hit someone. I got to experience the first time I was in an accident, you know, in a car accident. And this was one which I had dreamt about. And I emailed my dad, you know, I have the email. I emailed my dad and said, hey, I don't know if this happened, but I've been dreaming about this accident that we had at this and this place. But we all came out unscathed, you know?
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm not sure how you're able to remember that, but we had that accident when you were just under 2 years old. You're not supposed to be able to remember that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's not something that they ever spoke about or reminded me about. But when I took it back to my dad, he was like, yeah, this actually happened. And in that exact same order in which you've narrated to me, you know? So we experienced that again. And it showed me my life from that moment right up to that point that I had gone there, you know? And then it takes me back and I'm going through all the emotions that I have ever experienced on this planet, you know? And it will show me the best of it and the worst of it, and to the full extent on both sides, you know?
Yes.
And this was my first intention being answered, you know, where I was experiencing all these emotions on the human spectrum that, you know, that we have. So if someone had ever told me that they feel like they are incapable of love, I experienced that. If someone had told me that they were heartbroken, I experienced that. If someone had told me that they were ecstatic because they had just graduated, I experienced that. If someone had told me that they were like super happy because they just had a new baby, you know, I experienced that. Like every range of emotions, you know, that there is.
Yeah.
The good ones, the bad ones, you know, all of them. And obviously the bad ones are not things which you want to experience. But I had to, like, I was resisting it at the start of the session. Like halfway in, I was really, really resisting it. And it was, the shaman came by and she was like, hey, I can feel, because what happens is the shaman can tap into your experience, you know, like they've been trained to do that. So she can come in, can help guide you, you know. And she came in and she was like, hey, you're resisting these things. Don't resist, just succumb to the experience and you're going to be able to pass through it, you know.
Yes.
When I did, you know, and I started understanding all of these emotions and everything, and that was just like a couple of hours into, you know, into like night, you know. So going through all this range of emotions, like the weirdest one and the one which I resisted the most was you know, like when your wife tells you that she's on her period and she doesn't feel good, and all you can do is just be like, yeah, you don't really know what it is, you know?
Indeed.
I had that experience as well, you know?
Whoa, you had the experience of a woman going through her period?
Yeah, I had the experience of a woman going through her period, you know, like what that pain feels like, you know? And it was one of the things that I resisted the most, because at that point, now, I have nothing against people who are of the LGBTQ community, but it's something that I know, like, okay, I am a heterosexual male, you know, and then feeling like I was changing internally it was something that I wasn't ready to accept, you know. I was like, no, I am male, I am not female, I am not supposed to be having this type of experience, you know. That's me fighting with it. But you know what? It wouldn't go away until you be like, all right, I'm ready to receive this. I am ready to experience this, you know? And that was the thing. That was one of the blocks that I was having. And the shaman, she came back and she was like, hey, just let it happen. Just let it happen. Just let it happen. Just let it happen, you know? And I let it happen. And I went through that pain. It's not something that I think guys really take into consideration, you know? I'm glad that I experienced it. My partner could feel it right after I came back. Like every time she was on her period, I became a completely different person because I know what that pain feels like, you know. I know it's not something that I take for granted anymore, you know. And there's nothing that I can do for her physically, but I can make life easier for her. If it's, say, if there's a stool, if there's something blocking the way to the bathroom for her to use it, I know to move that out of the way, you know. I know to, you know, maybe play my music at a certain volume or do things in a different way to make life easier for her, to reduce her suffering, you know, because I have felt that pain, you know, and just with every other emotion that there was, you know. So coming out of that night one, I was like, good, my intention has been answered. But the real work starts right after this.
Yes. Trying to incorporate all those lessons in your actual day-to-day. Yes.
Yeah, the real work starts after this. And so like the ayahuasca experience is something that you do at night, you know, like it's done in the dark, and then in the morning you sleep a little bit, and then you come back with you do it as a group, you know, so like because there's a lot of energy exchange.
Yes.
And but you're always warned, like, do not go into any other person's trip, you know, like if you feel like someone is in pain or anything, don't go to them. The shaman is going to take care of that, you know, like everyone is having their own unique experience, you know, so no matter what happens, do not go to them.
Yeah.
And so the next morning you all sit together and you talk about your experiences, you know, and that's what they call the intercession, and it is the most important part of the retreat, because that's where you get to understand other people's their experience that they've had. You get more insight into your own experience, the experience that you were having. You get a lot of things explained to you, and you really just witness the transformation now in this state of life. Yeah. And being in that environment where you've just come out from a collective conscious, you know, like experience, you know, and you can see it transform in your life right there, you know. So we had a couple of we had that intercession for I think like another 2-3 hours in the morning, and there were times during it where I would just burst into tears, you know, because I am still in that zone where I'm still going through like someone's pain, or I remember something that someone told me, you know, and I think like I didn't do enough, you know, and I'm punishing myself for like, oh damn, like I didn't do enough, you know, I didn't do enough. But then, and so the shaman, I'll come to this at the end. And the second night started out with the trip started. And on the second night, it was a little bit calmer, but what I was experiencing here was showing me again, and then how much I was so lucky. Like I had my intentions, like everything just clicked and just connected, you know? Yeah. Like it was showing me like how much I've moved away from what were my values, you know? It also showed me certain values which, you know, like I grew up thinking that these were important values to have, and made me understand that these are no longer important. These are not relevant, you know, these are not relevant to the person that I am becoming, you know. And certain things, certain habits, certain people, certain groups or things that I no longer have to be part of if I want to carry on to be the best version of myself, or a better version of myself, you know.
Yeah.
But now imagine going through your life thinking that the color blue, like you've been taught that this color blue is blue,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then someone comes and tells you that no, this is not blue, it is red. There's going to be a lot of resistance from your part to change the name, just the name, you know, like from blue to red. You know, and that's what was happening to me, where I would get to certain places and I'm blocked, and because I am refusing something, you know. And like they always say, like sometimes the things that hurt us the most are the things that we cling on to for so long, you know. It was a lot of those things, you know, which would be like, oh no, but I'm like, no, I can't let go of this because this is important to me. Like this is how I grew up, you know, like this is what was close to me, you know.
Yeah.
But after a little bit of more, you know, like talking more, I get to understand that actually, you know what, this is really not that important. Like this is not adding any value to my life, you know. And that was the path that I decided to now take, you know. So if anything was adding value to my life, yes, I keep it with me. If it wasn't adding any value to my life, I discard it, you know.
Yeah.
And there was also the part of my ego, you know, and our ego is just the various forms of ourselves, how we like to be seen outside, you know, like the various forms of ourselves that we built, you know, like the different personalities that we have, you know.
Yeah.
There's the me as someone who works in a corporate banking office. There's the me as someone who is a slightly enlightened and spiritual person. There's the me, the person who loves to exercise, you know, like all of those constitute to be me as a whole, but each of them, like, they're all masks that we wear, you know, and at different time, different masks come on and they go off, you know.
Yes.
So there are some of those which were like, okay, we need to face this. So it would literally stand in front of me, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm on the corridor. I can see the door at the end, and I have to walk through the corridor to get to the end. But every time I'm trying to go forward, there's a version of me that steps in front of me, you know. I have to deal with that version of myself, you know.
Yep.
And you know what a lot of it was? It was just forgiveness, you know, because I realized that a lot of things were walls that I had built on myself, or maybe built around myself, maybe for being afraid, not loving enough,
Yes.
Underachieving or overachieving, you know, like, so all of those things play into your personality, or the various forms of your ego, you know, and all of them, you know, like they stood in front of me, and a lot of the time, I just had to forgive myself to be able to move forward, you know.
Wow. Fucking it's such a pleasure to talk to you, Spencer. It's nuts. And the last statement, I mean, I had a million questions, and I know people listening are going to be like, Roland, you're making this into something way more than it should be. But it's so refreshing to speak to you, because it's the same experiences that I'm having. But the last thing you talked about, which I have to piggyback on that. And again, please understand that my passion is to help you, whoever it is listening, help you remember who and why you are. And I said this at the beginning of the conversations. We are these infinitely creative beings having an illusionary and temporary experience here on earth, designed to teach us how to be infinitely creative and experience and express an infinite array of emotions. And so I'm not knocking anything that currently exists. It has a purpose. But when you self-realize, or when you become a little bit more enlightened or awakened, you see the game as it really is. You see the Earth life experience as it really is a game. And so I say all of that to ask you this, Spence. One of the things you just said, which is my current belief, the idea of forgiving yourself, right?
Yeah.
Now, you can speak for yourself, but in my experience, that was nothing I was ever thought was capable. I was capable of doing growing up, right, in the Catholic teachings, right? What did forgiveness entail? Going to a Catholic priest and asking for forgiveness through confession, in that sense.
Yeah.
And in my meditating practices, on the day I awakened, that was like one of the biggest lessons was, Roland, you have to forgive yourself first. right?
Yeah.
And I've tried to impart that on my friends, even some of my family members, even my sister who was going through something she did that she was very, very sad about, and she
Yeah.
didn't know how to handle, and she wanted to talk to folks. And I told her first, I said, hey, you forgive yourself first before you talk to folks. Because when you talk
Yeah.
to folks, they're going to tell you their experiences and what they think you should do. And if you aren't forgiven by you, you're just going to be confused, right?
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
so beautiful that, these illusionary characters that you created to help you feel safe, right?
Mhm.
The person, bodybuilder, the banker employee, right? The
Mhm.
world traveler. You saw
Yeah.
that there were illusions keeping you from your real self. And you
Yeah.
basically just had to forgive them and say, okay, thanks for helping me feel safe for this long,
Yeah.
but I no longer need you. And I've
Yeah.
learned all the lessons I need to learn from you. Now I want to take things to the next level.
Exactly.
Loyal. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that is so powerful, and I love it. Thank you. I'm glad I didn't say it, but I'm glad you said it to sort of give me the platform to speak some more on it.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason why we're having this conversation, right? Like
Yes.
to exchange all of this experiences that we are having and see where we can apply some of this into our lives to have a richer experience here on Earth.
No,
So,
absolutely. I will make another video. This one won't be a conversations with Roland. It'll be just some of my videos. But I've also had an ayahuasca experience. It was a week-long experience, and it was down in Costa Rica at
yeah,
Rainier Life Advancement Center. Beautiful place. Sort of the same thing. We had 4 nights of medicine, and after every night we had the sort of communal discussions,
yeah.
intercessions, yeah. And they were beautiful, and every single one of my nights was amazing. And I'll speak on that on a review, and that'll be different. But no, that's beautiful, and um, that is something. And I'll be honest, if I when I decided to partake in the ayahuasca, I did not speak with my parents about it. I don't know if you did, if you felt comfortable doing that or not.
I came out of it, and the first person I called was my dad.
Yeah.
And also because there were things that I had to tell him.
Hmm.
So I had to set the stage and be like, hey, this is what is happening, and this is what I'm about to tell you.
Hmm.
And being the man that he is, as awesome as he is, he understood it, and he was very happy that I was, where I was, like anything that goes to your personal development, like he would always support you with it, like he trusts me to make the right decisions,
Yeah.
and that's how he has always raised me, like give me the opportunity to do right and also to make my mistakes and to learn from them. So,
Yeah. Oh, so that's beautiful. Oh, thanks so much, man. Really, really, thank you. Um, we're at 2 hours. This is literally going to be part one and part two because I don't know anyone who's going to sit on YouTube and listen to us talk for 2 hours straight. Um,
yeah,
but we're definitely going to talk more in the future. Like we said, I'd like to know more about your travels and how you plan those. You do have a blog, right?
yeah.
Kaizen Live. Can you tell me what the purpose of your blog is? The message you're trying to get out with that?
So when I started the blog, it really is just about my travels and how I experience the world through my travels, and also, so it's if you go like into the about page, it's going to say travel and mindfulness, So I write about travel, and then sometimes I just write about my thoughts, I write about my experiences as someone who's avidly spiritual, So, and like what I've shifted from doing, there's so many stuff I've written, but I've just not posted them yet. I have like 20 articles in draft mode, but I'll get around to posting more frequently. What I'm doing now is I've shifted from talking about things generally, but actually narrowing it down to my own experience,
Okay.
So I would hate to, or I hate to say, hey, I'm doing this, other people are doing that. No, I've stopped worrying about people, you know?
Yes.
Like, anything that I'll be writing is about me. It's about my experience, you know? So anyone reading it can connect directly with me. And if it's something that they find value in and they want to, like take and add into their own lives, they are welcome to do it. If it's something that, like they are not ready to accept at this point in their lives, they're welcome to do it as well. So the blog is just about my travel and mindfulness, and basically my experience here in this ego form that is known as Spencer, and how I go through life, So that's what the site on the blog is all about.
Ah, that's beautiful. I have definitely like reading it. I definitely like your Instagram feeds, and I'm going to put the links to all of them if you want to join Spencer. It's going to be down below in this interview. He's on Instagram at My Kaizen Life. And Kaizen is a pretty cool word, and many people listening might not know what Kaizen is. Would you mind telling them?
Yeah, so Kaizen is actually a combination of two Japanese words, Kai and Zen. And we obviously know what Zen is, like the calm, the enlightened person. And, Kai is an improvement. So Kaizen together in Japanese means continuous improvement.
Yes.
So that's how I changed it to, I then coined it My Kaizen Life, so my life of continuous improvement.
Yeah.
So that's my mantra,
Yeah. No, that is beautiful. And we literally are here continually improving, growing, and that improvement is permanent with our soul self, our, infinite self. And this, like you mentioned, Spencer, Njoya, the character playing this earth life is temporary, but everything you're doing is contributing to your soul's learning, and then paradoxically, but not paradoxically, actually, very beautifully to all of our learnings, right? Because I'm seeing what you're doing and I'm learning for that, and we're sharing this experience, exchanging information that way. And I think we should close here just so that folks have a little bit of time to digest the many topics we've talked about. Yeah, so if there's one thing you want to leave folks with, right, Spencer, to help them sort of be more aware or encourage them to sort of attain this consciousness, because like I said, it's very few people have this awareness, and it's such a pleasure to talk to you, really. But what would you want to leave folks with, if you can sort of summarize?
So the first thing I'll say is don't be too hard on yourself, and when you look around you, it looks like everyone has figured it out and you haven't. Some of them have, some of them have not. But don't worry about the other people, worry about yourself. Look at yourself every day in the morning and say, hey, is this the person that I want to be today? Like when I step out of this house, am I going to wear my face the same way? Am I living to the best of my abilities? And most importantly, how am I helping to give back? Because there could be someone who is having it worse than me. And how am I able to, reach out and help this person when the time comes? But I need to be able to take care of myself first, because you cannot drink from an empty cup, You cannot drink from an empty cup. You need to take care of yourself first. And it's one of the things which my shaman told me after my session, because I kept on focusing on how I wanted to make other people feel, And she asked, what about you? And I burst into tears, because I had been doing everything just so that I could do things for everyone else, Mm-hmm. And she was like, you need to focus on yourself. So that's what I want to leave people with. Focus on yourself. It's going to look like you are not supporting people or you're not doing the right thing. But again, you cannot drink from an empty cup. When you focus on yourself, when you've developed yourself well enough, you'll be in a far better position to help anyone else. to give back to anyone else. So that's all I have. So just focus on yourself, be mindful of your life every single day. Stop every day for a minute or two to just check your emotions and see how you feel, that's going to make you know whether you're in the right frame of mind to carry on with the day. If not, you regroup and you carry on.
Wow, that's absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Spencer. I don't think I need to add anything else to that. I couldn't have said it better. Taking care of yourself is not selfish. It's literally how everything else falls in place. People admire you when you do that. You're a better communicator. You're just a better person when you are in alignment with who you are. And it really makes it easier to support other people as well. And it's not selfish at all. So don't feel that way.
Yeah.
Thank you again. Spencer is on at My Kaizen Life on Instagram. He's got a blog, mykaizenlife.org. I'll leave a link in the bottom. Connect with him. And if you're interested in any of these topics that we've talked about, feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I also have a website, Roland@Achenjang.com. Feel free to join my mailing list. From there, you get this awesome 6 paths to effective meditating that I created. It's a guide. It's free. It's literally how I started meditating. And it can help you attain this level of consciousness and even more, seriously. And if it's not this, and if it's something else that will benefit you, and I literally guarantee it. Meditating is free. It's healing. I don't know why everyone doesn't do it. Seriously, do it. And not to bombard you with offers, I also have a brand new book out on Amazon right now, Who and Why You Are. In the book, I talk about a lot of the topics that Spencer and I just discussed, and I put it in a very nice framework to really understand the Earth Life experience, why you perceive it the way you do, and how to make it an enjoyable and blissful experience while you're here. Because you are this infinitely creative and brave soul here on Earth, having a temporary and illusionary experience designed to teach us all how to be infinitely creative and to express and experience infinite emotions. And to remember that we really are all one. We all come from the same source. So thanks so much for listening. Thank you for your time. It was a great 2.5 hours of conversating here, Spencer. And
thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Thank you.
And let's do this again,
Yeah. No, likewise. This is hopefully one of 1,000 episodes that I'm gonna have. So yeah.
I'm available at any time, just hit me up, and any topic you wanted to narrow down, depending on the type of responses you get on this. If people want to get more information on something, I'm ready to jump in on a call and talk specifically on that.
Likewise.
Likewise.
Okay, thank you.